For this video, we're going to go over the skill of Pythagorean theorem and how to solve for the Pythagorean theorem. So just so that you know, the actual theorem itself looks like this. A squared plus b squared, oh, it's a terrible b, let's write that again. B squared is equal to c squared. Okay, so what I mean by a, b, and c, you're going to have a triangle, and it's going to be a right triangle. And every time you use the Pythagorean theorem, it needs to be a right triangle with 90 degrees. Beyond that, you have side A, side B, and side C. Side C is always the longest side, and side A and B are going to be the shorter sides. And generally, when we solve these problems, we're going to be solving for side C, and a few examples I'm going to show you later on, we're going to be solving for sides A and B. They're pretty much the same steps, it's just kind of one thing reversed. Let's look at an example kind of right here and I'll show you how this works out. Okay, so we have side A is 5, side B is 6, and side C we don't know, it's just x. So if we plug those into this equation, so it's a squared, so that means 5 squared, plus, let's see, b squared is 6. It's going to be 6 squared. And we don't know what side C is. We're trying to figure that out. So let's put that as x squared. So we have a squared, b squared, and c squared. Okay. So now solving these out, 5 squared, or 5 times 5, gives us 25. 6 squared gives us 36. And let's see, that's going to be equal to x squared. Now just for saving space, let's pull the calculator out. And let's say 25 plus 36 is equal to 61. Okay, so 61 is equal to x squared. Okay, but we want to figure out what x is, not x squared. So to get rid of that squared, we need to take the square root of not only the right side, but also the left side. Okay, so on the calculator, the one you'll see on the GED is going to be a little bit, or set up a little bit different than this one. However, the sign or the symbol is going to be the same. It's this kind of check mark looking type thing here. So all you do to figure out the square root of something on a calculator, you just press the number, so we're looking for the number 61, and then you just press the square root sign. You don't need to press the equal sign. So it says 7.8. So we have 7.8, and then there's a bunch of numbers, but just for brevity, we just have 7.8. And then we're just left with x. Okay, so now we have x is equal to 7.8. Okay, let's clear this out, and then we'll start working through some of these other problems that you see on the worksheet. Okay, looking at number 1, side A is going to be 3, and that's going to be squared. Then we're going to add side B is going to be 4, and that's also going to be squared. And then we're trying to figure out the longest angle, or side C, and we don't know what that is. Okay, so solving that, 3 squared gives us 9, plus 4, or not 4, but it's going to be, 16. And that's going to be equal to c squared. From there, 9 plus 16 gives us 25, and that is equal to c squared. And remember, we want to figure out what is c, what is that long angle there. So we're going to take the square root of each side, and let's see, that's going to leave us with c, because the square root and the square, they kind of cancel out. And then the square root of 25 is just 5, because remember, you have to think what number times the same number gives you 25. And that's 5 times 5 gives you 25. Or practicing on the calculator, you're going to punch in 25 and then press the square root button, and that's going to give us 5. Okay, so that means our answer for number 1 is A. Let's look at number 2. Okay, number 2, side A is going to be 2 squared, side B is going to be 7 squared, and we don't know what side C is, so it's going to be c squared. We can just leave it as c. This example we have as x. It's not really a huge deal as long as you know we're solving for that side. So 2 squared gives us 4, plus 7 squared gives us 49, And then we have c squared left over. From there, we're going to add 4 plus 49, and that's going to give us, what, 53 is equal to c squared. And then we're going to take the square root of each number. And to practice on the calculator, we're going to type in 53, and then take the square root, and that's going to give us 7.28, and then this huge number. If you look at the directions, and if you look at the answers, it's saying round to the nearest tenth. So we need to either look at one number behind the decimal to see what we're going to round to. Okay, so if it's 7.28 is equal to c, that's going to mean, let's see, we can just kind of round that off to 7.3, but let's see, what's closest to our answer? Because remember, on the GED, you have to find the best answer. So we're choosing between 7, 7.5, 7.28, and 8. Well, the closest one there, if we're going to find to the nearest answer, is going to be C, 7.2. Let's look at number 3. Okay, side A is 13, so it's going to be 13 squared. 14 is going to be B, so it's going to be 14 squared. And then we don't know what that side is right there, so it's going to be C squared. Okay, practicing on the calculator, 13, and then we're going to push this button here that says X squared. So once you type the number, you don't need to do anything with the equal sign, just push that, and that's going to give us our number. So that's 169. Okay, so type that out. Leave it a little bit lower so we can see the number. From there, let's see, 14 squared, so we're going to type in 14 and then press that squared button. That's going to give us 196. Okay, and that's going to be equal to c squared. Okay, if we add those together, that's going to give us 169 plus 196, and then you type in the equal sign. That's going to give us 365, and that's going to be equal to c squared. From there, we're going to take the square root of each side, the left and the right side. So if you just have the number pulled up on there, all you have to do is just push that square root button, and then it gives us our answer there. So from here, that's going to give us 19.10, and then it kind of trails off, is equal to C. Okay, so looking between our answers, we have 19, 19.10, 20, or 15. Well, the closest answer to the one we got is B, 19.1. Let's look at number 4. So even though it's kind of upside down and kind of lopsided, we're still trying to find for part C, which is the longest part of that triangle. So as you can kind of tell, it doesn't matter which one you assign A and B because you're just going to add them together anyway. But let's just, for the sake of doing the problem the same way every time, let's say 5 is A and 10 is B. So that's going to be 5 squared plus 10 squared is equal to C squared. So that's going to be 25 plus 100 is equal to C squared. So that'll be 125 is equal to C squared. And then if we, and remember, C on all calculators means clear. That's kind of like to delete everything from the memory so you can start over fresh. That's going to be 125. Type that in and then take the square root. It's going to give us 11.18, and then kind of continuing on from there is equal to C because we took the square root of each side. So let's see, what answer is closest to that? Well, we have 11.1, 11.2, 0.3, or 0.4. Well, what is this closest to, 11.1 or 11.2? Well, since it's a 0.18, that's closest to B, 11.2. Let's look at number 5. Okay, this is an example where we're going to work a little bit backwards. Okay, so remember that this long part we always consider C, and these two sides right here connecting with a 90-degree angle are always going to be A or B. And remember, it doesn't matter since you add them together, but this long angle is always going to be side C. So what information do we have? So let's just use 4 as point A. So it's going to be 4 squared plus And now we don't know what b squared is. So let's just put in b squared. And we know c squared is 8 squared. Okay, so then how do we figure out what b squared is? Well, just kind of using algebra the same way, we want to get this 4 squared over on this side, and we want to get b squared by itself. That way it says maybe b squared is equal to something. Okay, well, in order to get this plus 4 squared off of this side, we want to subtract 4 squared, so that way they just cancel out. And then we're going to subtract 4 squared from this side. So that means it's going to look like this. B squared, that's all that's going to be left over. And then we're going to have 8 squared minus 4 squared. So it's like we're just putting them together. And let me clean this up really quick. So now instead of adding these two, we're just going to be subtracting. Okay, so 8 squared gives me 64 minus 4 squared gives me 16. If we subtract that out, 64 minus 16, that's equal to 48. Okay, so we write 48, and that's equal to b squared. Okay, and same thing, we want to figure out what is b. In order to do that, we need to get rid of that squared, so we're going to take the square root of each side. So we have 48 plugged in already. It means we just push the square root button, and that's going to give us this huge number here. Let's just say 6.92. What's closest here? Let's see, A, B, C, there we go, D. Looks like the best answer from the number we got, 6.92, and that's the closest, 6.9. Definitely just rounded off to the 10th, which is as the directions say. Okay, let's try number 6. Okay, so we have the right angle here, so that means this is going to be A or B, and we're trying to figure out C. Okay, so that means we're going to have 5 squared plus 5 squared is equal to c squared. So that's 25 plus 25 is equal to c squared, or 50 is equal to c squared. From there, to figure out what c is, we're going to take the square root of each side. So we're going to press clear and then type in 50 and the square root button. That's going to give us 7.07. What's the closest answer we have to that? So 5, 3.6, or there we go, C, 7. Let's look at number 7. Clear this out. Alright, number 7 says, let's see, 6 squared plus 7 squared equals something. So let's see, 6 squared is going to give us 36. 7 squared gives us 49. That's going to be equal to c squared. Okay, let's see what that is. So 36 plus 49 is equal to 85 is equal to c squared. So that means we're going to take the square root of those two. Let's see what that says. That's going to be 9.21 is equal to c. What answer is closest to that? There you go, c, 9.21. Let's look at number 8. Alright, so we know 5 and 4.5 are either going to be a and b because we have that right angle there. So let's see. We're going to have 4.5 squared plus 5 squared is equal to c squared. Let's see on the calculator, practicing that out. Let's move that a little bit. So 4.5 squared gives us 20.25. Okay, plus 25. So that's going to give us, what, 45.25 is equal to c squared. So if we take the square root of that, and of the right side also, let's see if we type that in, 45.25, and then take the square root, that's going to be 6.72, and oh, that was crazy, 6.72. That's the closest thing to it. 6.7, that's going to be A. Alright, let's look at number 9. Alright, number 9 has, let's see, 3 and 5. So let's see, 3 squared gives us 9, plus 5 squared gives us 25, is equal to c squared. 9 plus 25 gives us 34 is equal to c squared. And if we take the square root of 34, and type 34 and then the square root, it's going to give us 2.41, and then kind of some stuff beyond that. Let's see, what's the closest number? Okay, starting with this one, let's see, we have 3 squared plus 5 squared, so it's going to be 9 plus 25 is equal to c squared. Adding 9 and 25, that gives us 34 is equal to c squared. We're going to take the square root of each side. So 34, and then type square root. That's going to give us 5.8 is equal to c. Okay, so closest thing we have, there you go, b, 5.8. Let's look at number 10. Okay, number 10, we have 4 squared, which is 16, plus 3 squared gives us 9. And that's equal to c squared. That means 16 and 9 give us 25 is equal to c squared. Take the square root of each side. It's going to be 5 is equal to c. And there we go. First answer there, A. Let's look at number 11. Okay, looking at this problem, it's one of those backwards ones. That was number 12. It's going to be good practice. Okay, and remember we have the formula here, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Another thing to keep in mind, there are not many formulas that you need to know, or even any at all, because all the formulas for the GED test are going to be in the front page of the booklet. The thing is, it's important to know which formulas to know for which problem. So that's the only thing that practice helps with. You can identify, well, I need to use this formula for this problem. But as for remembering all like the intricate details of like the formula, that's always going to be in the GED booklet when you take the test. Okay, so plug in these numbers in. We know c squared because that's the longest side there. So that's going to be 13 squared. It's equal to, we don't know what a is, so that's just going to leave that as a squared. And then b squared is, I have this 12 squared. Okay. So that's going to be, what, 144 plus a squared is equal to, I don't know what 13 squared is. Let's see, push the square button, gives us 169. Okay, that means we're going to subtract 144 because we want to get that a squared by itself and equal to something. And we're also going to subtract it on that side also. 169 minus 144 gives us 25. So we want to figure out what a is, not a squared. So we're going to take the square root of each side. And let's see, square root of 25 is 5. Because 5 times 5 gives us 5. So that means our answer for this one will be C, 5. Okay, number 12. Now we have the same setup. We know what the long side is, or side C. That's going to be 15 squared is equal to, and it doesn't matter if this is A or B. Let's just say, let's just B. 12 squared is equal to, or not equal to, plus A squared. Okay, so same process. That's going to be 144 is equal to, what's 15 squared? Let's see, 225. And then plus a squared. Okay, so we're going to subtract 144. That way we can get that a squared by itself from each side. Okay, so that means that's going to cancel out. And 225, we already have that plugged in there, minus 144 gives us 81. And 81 is equal to a squared. And we're going to take the square root of 81, which, remember, what number times the same number gives you 81? Well, it's going to be 9. 9 times 9 gives us 81. So that means A is going to be equal to 9, or answer C. All right, let's look at 13. Okay, so we have about 3 more problems to go until it finishes this lesson. So this one's pretty straightforward. We have a squared, it's going to be 144, plus b squared 8 times 8 gives us 64. And we don't know what the long side is. What's c squared? Okay, so let's type that in there. Let's put it there. There we go. 144 plus 64 is equal to 208. So if we write that in there, then once we take the square root of 208, that'll give us our answer, 14.4. Oops. Or 0.22 kind of goes on forever. But let's see. What do we have for our answers? They don't give us a direct answer. So it's just going to be almost like a formula. So what number do we need to set up? Okay, well we have 144 plus 64 is equal to c squared. And remember, we're always trying to solve for that unknown side. So what looks like the closest thing to what we did? Well, we kind of went ahead and we have 12 squared and 8 squared, but none of the answers look like 144 and 64. So again, I want you to feel comfortable adapting to how you solve problems, because you can see after doing 1 through 12, I was so quick in doing this, like, oh, it's going to be the same kind of problem, and now this is the same kind of problem, but they want us to answer it in a different way. Okay, so let's set this up kind of step by step and see if we can find the answer that looks closest to one of these. And I always, again, want to emphasize, I want you to feel comfortable changing when any kind of problem situation like this comes up, because I always try to look at the worksheets for the first time when I work these problems out, because it kind of gives me the same anxiety that any of my students would have when they first see a problem also, because you don't learn anything if I do everything perfect the first time, because no student does everything perfect the first time. So let's see. We have a squared, let's write this out, plus b squared is equal to c squared. Okay. We know a squared is 12 squared. B is 8 squared. And we don't know what c squared is. Okay, does that look like anything we have so far? Okay, well that kind of looks like this, but remember, we're trying to find c. That is the whole idea. We're not trying to find c squared. That's what c squared is. So it wouldn't be d. That means it would look something like this, because we want to take the square root of all of that. Because remember, once we add that together, then we're going to take the square root to find what c is. Okay, so then it'll be c squared plus 8 squared is equal to c. Okay, which one looks like that? It's not going to be c, because those are all subtracting. There we go. That means the best answer for that one is just going to be a. So that problem, they're just asking, how do you set it up? Not even how to solve it, just how to set it up. So keep that in mind. You want to be flexible in terms of how you answer things. And even though this was a new way of doing the problem, it was still the same information, and all we had to do was just plug everything back in. So definitely feel confident that you can be flexible doing any kind of problem this way, that it doesn't matter how you solve it. It's more about just being flexible. Let me erase this all really quick. All right, for 14, let's see. We have a squared plus b squared, and now the answers look pretty similar to when we solve it. So let's see. 9 squared gives us 81, plus 10 squared gives us 100, and that's equal to c squared, because we don't know what that is. So 81 plus 100 gives us 181 is equal to c squared, and then we're going to take the square root of each side. So you're going to press clear on the calculator, press 181, and then press the square root. So let's see, that's 13.45. And let's see, what's closest to that? There we go, D, 13.45. All right, one more problem, and that'll finish out, this lesson. It's another problem just like number 13. So they're not really asking us how to answer it, they're asking us how do we solve it. Okay, let's erase this really quick. All right, so we know the formula a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Okay, so we know the long side is always c squared, So that means it's going to be 14 squared is equal to b squared. And let's see if we have the other side is what? A squared is, there we go. Okay, looking at this problem, it looks, there we go, similar to number 13, where they want us to figure out what is the answer and how do you solve it, not the actual answer. Okay, so if we write out the formula, that means we have a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Okay, and then kind of going off the general formula from this example where you have a, b, and side c, it looks like here we don't know what side a is. Okay, so we're basically going to write out how to solve for that. B squared is going to be 8 squared. And then we have c squared, is always that long side, is 14 squared. Okay, so does that look like anything there? Now remember, they want us to figure out how to solve it. So let's see, in order to get a squared, or actually a is equal to whatever, we need to get this 8 squared over on this side. So in order to, I guess, cancel that out, we want to do the opposite of addition, which is subtracting 8 squared from both sides. Okay, so that means we have 8 squared is equal to, what, 14 squared minus 8 squared. Okay, does that look like anything? 14 squared minus 8 squared kind of looks like that one. And that one would be the best answer, but we haven't taken the square root of it yet, because remember, we want to find what is a, not a squared. So that's why it's going to look like the square root of 14 squared minus 8 squared. So that means the best answer there is going to be number A. And that finishes this problem and lesson on the Pythagorean theorem.